Okay, today is August the 9th, uh, 2007, and with us today is Keith Nelson. He's going to tell us of his experiences in World War II in the Pacific Theater and about his life in general and out in eastern Colorado and all the good things he's done. So we're going to get to that right away. Roll 'em. Well, Keith, I think the thing to tell us is, what is your name?
My name is Keith Kingsley Nelson.
Gainsbury?
Kingsley.
Chansley.
Like the Kingsley Dam, you know.
Oh, Kingsley. Okay.
Yeah. I better speak plainly, I guess.
You're doing okay. Now, tell us where you were born.
I was born down here in the Good Samaritan Hospital.
In Sterling. Yeah. Who delivered you?
I don't know. I can't remember.
It's okay. I'll tell you a story about that some. Anyway, well, okay. And so you were born here, and when were you born?
1924, August the 20th.
1920. Okay. And were you raised in Sterling, or how?
No, I was raised. I never lived in Sterling except when I went to NJC. We'll see. I came home from the hospital to Fleming, and Dad was working in the elevator. He got a job in the elevator, so when we went out to Snyder, I lived there for a while. Then we went to Paola. There's a lot of stories there. But anyway, then we moved out to the farm in 1937.
Where was your farm?
It's out there just this side of F&H Golf Course.
F&H. That's kind of south of Fleming and Paola. Yeah?
Southeast of Fleming.
Yeah, southeast of Fleming there. Yeah.
It's between Haxton and Fleming.
Right. So, and you've lived there all the rest of the time, more or less?
Well, no, I started teaching school in Fleming in 1950. I mean Holyoke in 1950.
Okay.
And in 1950, and it took us about 2 days to get down there on a troop train. We went through Oklahoma City, and they stopped there for supper. And on the way to a restaurant, there was a whole line of us troop. We were walking down the sidewalk, and we got to a stoplight. Here some girl stopped right in front of us. Some good-looking young chick. So we didn't care for that, but we just opened the door of the back seat and walked through the door or through the car. She was a little perturbed at first, and then she began to laugh, and we told her we couldn't wait for her to get started, so she sat there through a couple of lights, waiting for us to get across. Well, anyway, we got to Camp Hood on my birthday, August the 20th, 1944, yeah. And I got off the whatever we were riding in, and the first thing I did was take a drink of water, and I about threw up. That water was so warm and it's so full of chlorine. This was on the base there at Camp Hood. But anyway, we were assigned to barracks, and we were there for 17 weeks. My training was in anti-tank.
Anti-tanks.
Well, Lauren Goods, as I tell you, he came down there too, and his training was in a rifleman. Right, he was a rifleman. But I better get ahead of myself here. Well, when he went overseas, he was an anti-tank, and I was a rifleman.
Oh, it switched around, huh?
Yeah, it seemed kind of funny. I taught school in Fleming, and we moved out to a house right north of the homestead house out there.
Okay.
That my grandparents homesteaded.
They homesteaded there.
The one house, and we moved out to the house right north of there.
So not the but when did your do you know when your grandparents showed up out there in the at
Yes, it was
Homestead?
approximately 1980.
1980?
Yeah, I mean 1880.
1880. Yeah, right. I was going to say what? So they were real pioneers out there.
Well, they bought a relinquishment. That's what they called that. See, somebody had the homestead and he left, and they bought the relinquishment.
Okay.
And when they moved out here, they lived in a dugout, this just straight south of Fleming, with some birds. Now that's people named Birds.
Oh, birds. Okay, yeah.
And then they moved over to the homestead house, and Dad was born there in 19, yeah, no, 1896.
96.
95.
95.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when we moved back out there from Paola in 1937, I went to school in Daly. I graduated from Daly in 1942.
And then 42, but then that was when there was a lot of turmoil, and World War II was going on or starting, and there was 41 was kind of the bad time starting there.
See, Pearl Harbor was 41 before I graduated in 42, in May of 42. We were the first class to graduate after Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
Now, do you want me? I'll go on. Then after I graduated, I got a agricultural deferment.
Okay.
From clear up till 1944. Well, I got tired of being people made fun of you, and there's some boys asked me, well, how come I wasn't in that thing? So I went to the people that drafted people, what do you call them?
Draft board?
The draft board. Told
Right.
them I wanted to get in the service. And they said, well, that sure is nice, because we just have somebody that we just have a vacancy, or somebody's not going to be able to go, you can go in their place. So I said, oh, now let's don't get in a hurry. You know, back then they played around for 2 months after they got drafted. Well, I got drafted, and I went up there in July, the last part of June of 44.
44, okay.
Yeah, and I took my physical July the 6th, 1944, up in Denver. Went up with quite a few boys from around here. Did you ever know Lauren Good?
Lauren Good?
Yeah.
Just a name.
He was on that bus. And then I was stationed out at Fort Logan. And where you...
And that was in the Army?
This is in the United States Army.
In the Army, yeah, okay.
And so then they shipped me off to Camp Hood now, Camp Hood then.
So you guys were there for how many weeks?
17 weeks.
17
basic
weeks.
training.
Basic training.
Yeah.
Well, what did that amount to? Did they make you run and do stuff like
Yeah,
that? Or what?
well, I lost, let's see, I was about 150 pounds when I went in there, and when I came out, I was about 180. I gained.
You actually gained weight.
I gained 40 pounds on that Army food.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah, see, we had trucks because we were anti-tank. Poor old Lauren probably had to walk out to the different fields. But we rode in trucks and went out and learned to shoot anti-tank guns and rifles and so on. And then, of course, you've heard of when you have, let's see what they call that, the infiltration course.
Right.
That's where you have to crawl on the ground and shoot over you, and if you stand up, you get shot. Now I don't think anybody ever did. I've heard people did that, but it wasn't that low. But And then all that time out there, we lived in basic or pup tents. And then it started to rain. Our first week was real nice. The second week it was just 2 weeks we had, and it started to rain. And here our pup tent was, full of water, and we were starving to death out there. And we'd raid the mess hall just to get something to eat, and we did. And it was quite a deal that trading out there. And then when we got done with the basic training, we were out 20 miles. So they just slightly told us, well, you're going to walk back.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't the worst part. We were used to walking that far. We walked 20 miles, and when we got back up to the camp, why, they said, now we're going to go back 2.5 miles, and you're going to walk 5 miles back. Boy, that's what killed us. We knew we were just ready to go to bed.
Oh.
So then we walked into the base there, and they gave us a real nice meal. I'll say that for them. And then we went to bed. But then the basic training was over, and so we took another troop train to come home. We did get a furlough, and then I was sent out to Los Angeles, and they took us to Fort Ord. Have you heard of Fort Ord?
Fort Ord, yep.
It was quite a base, and it wasn't so bad. And from Fort Ord, we went to Fort Lawton. That's at Seattle.
Okay.
We spent 2 or 3 weeks there, and Seattle is something. It's raining and raining, and I remember a bunch of us were walking down the street, and the sun came out. And we just cheered like mad, because the first time we'd seen the sun, I guess. But anyway, then we left. We went over. We on a troop ship over to go to Hawaii. Boy, that was a deal. The ocean was pretty rough from here to Hawaii, and everybody got sick.
Whole ship got sick.
It seemed like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, my friend.
How many guys on that ship would you guess?
Oh, probably a couple thousand.
Okay.
There were a lot of them. But anyway, I went where we bunked. There were bunks like that. And there was my good friend Bob McClellan from Almena, Kansas. He was lying on the bed, just shaking and halfway screaming. I asked him, what the devil's the matter with him? Oh, he says, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And I said, all you got is seasickness. Well, that's so. He lay there for quite a while. And anyway, I went through the mess hall to eat. Well, I got my mess kit and I put it down on the table and I started eating. And I came out of the mess hall with more food than I went in with. I threw up because I got the seasick.
Seasick too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that was a big problem on those ships.
Oh yeah. Well, on the other ship it wasn't bad, but the Atlantic was really rough. Of course, it was latter part of February or something like that.
You were on Atlantic or the Pacific?
I mean Pacific.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
And you're heading for Hawaii.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get out or to Hawaii?
It only took about 6-7 days.
Okay.
And when we got to Hawaii, we pulled into Pearl Harbor, and there was the bubbles coming up we could see the bubbles.
From Arizona?
Arizona.
Yeah.
That was the Arizona. That was the boys down there putting up bubbles. That was really something. Now, you've been to that now, haven't you? It's
Yeah.
altogether different now. So they took us out to a pineapple field. And there we trained. We trained to fight in the jungle. A lot of pineapple around there. And those pineapple are good, I'll tell you that. They're about 1,000 times better than what we get here in the States. And we ate a lot of them. And then, it rained every afternoon, but otherwise it was warm rain, and it was nice. So then they loaded us on a real small train. Cars were open, and they were real small, and they pulled us up alongside a pineapple train. Well, that pineapple train had very few, or a lot less pineapple by the time. If one guy would get over there and throw them over to us, and then we had a lot of pineapple. And then we got on another troop ship and started for Saipan. Now it takes about 10 days to go to Saipan on a regular troop ship, but it took us 24 days because we were going around and around like that. And
zigzagging.
It was 24 days before we got there. Then we did some more jungle training, and I remember I was sitting out there in the would-be jungle, and I'd never seen a snail. Have you ever seen a snail?
Snail, yeah.
Have you? He came crawling over me. Took him about half hour to get across.
Yeah,
Just
the
barely
inch long,
moving.
yeah.
That was really something, and we were there for a week or so, and then we got on a troop ship and went to Okinawa. I thought it was Okinawa at the time.
Okinawa. Okinawa, huh?
I had a girlfriend back here in Kansas, and I made her a bracelet.
Yeah.
Put Okinawa, I put Okinawa on it. I've got it out there now. And we got there, and we got on the island of Okinawa, and it was a mess. You see, Naha is the capital. It's a really nice city now, they say. But then it was just walls where they'd been shot up. The Army does that. They'll sit back and shoot the whole island up and then go in. I could say there is another outfit that does it, but I better not. The Marines.
Yeah, right.
They just go in. Okay, so we went into Okinawa. And you have any more questions?
Well, now, when you got to Okinawa, Okinawa had been occupied by the American troops and
The Japanese.
the Japanese. Huh? So then,
we
did
had
you?
to take it back? Yeah,
You were having to take it back.
yeah.
Okay, so you landed on Okinawa with a landing force. Is that
Oh
correct?
yes, that was. I better tell about that too. We pulled into the harbor. Yeah, into the harbor there, and here came a suicide airplane came in. We thought we'd had it. We were in a landing craft infantry. That's open air. We could see it coming in, and it came, but it didn't hit what it wanted to. There's a ship beside us that what it wanted to hit, but it missed it, and missed us too. It was about that much room, but it hurt the ship. It got that close that it hurt the ship.
Hurt your ship?
No, not ours.
The
It was
sister
another one.
ship.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
I don't remember. And so then we went into Okinawa, and well, we didn't have any problems till we got up along the ways in on Skyline Ridge. That's one of the big battles they had. After Skyline Ridge, my company. This is when I joined the 7th Division on Okinawa.
Okay.
And the Skyline Ridge had 17, or my company, my squad, I guess it was, seems like it must be, had 17 men in it. And a squad usually has about 45. That many been lost in the Battle of Skyline. And then I remember the first well, I would go back, or the first time I felt we were going forward. We were what you call taking. You're on the front lines and you're going forward, and I thought to myself, "Oh, I'm taking one for the United States of America every time I take a step." I've told that to people, and they think that's kind of stupid, but then, and then in basic training, they told us you run and then you fall down, and then you jump up and you run and you fall down. So that's what I thought I'd do when we started forward. And this first sergeant, or the sergeant of my sergeant, this Texan, he had lots of good jokes anyway. But anyway, he said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he said, "Are you going to do that all day?" I said, "This is what they told us to do in basic training." He said, "Just forget that and we'll walk till we run into something we need to do that." And that's what we did. And we didn't have much problems after Skyline Ridge, and then, well, anyway,
Okay. So you went. What about the rear echelon?
Okay. See, I've been carrying an M1, and that's the rifle that the infantry carries.
Hold it just a minute.
Okay. All right. The rear echelon, the people behind, they came up and asked if anybody wanted to go back and carry the bazooka. You know what the bazooka is?
Yeah.
That's the thing that shoots tanks. It's supposed to knock out a tank. I thought that'd be a good deal, so I went back there and started working with the bazooka. I shot the bazooka in basic training, so I knew what it was all about. And I was, well, the rear echelon, they didn't pay much attention to me, so I went out to a foxhole that was out there that some of the rear echelon had dug, and it was only about that deep. But I thought, well, maybe it'd be all right. When we dug the foxhole, they were about this deep. So about the time I lay down in that place, and I think I was reading something, here came a big shell in. And I thought, well, what had is that dang foxhole wasn't deep enough. And that shell lit about 12 feet from me, and it was a dud.
Oh, really? How lucky.
It was a dud. And it sure did make a noise, though. So I didn't, well, the guy that had been carrying the bazooka with the rear echelon came back, so I went back up to my company, or to my platoon, and I was really tickled because I liked the boys up there. And so we started out again, and then, well, let's see, I think we did have a rest area there for a while, but anyway, then we went back up to the front lines, and the Japs had a great big gun. They'd run it in a cave, then they'd run it out and shoot at us. I don't know if it's behind us or in front of us, but I guess it was behind us anyway. Yeah, we heard that gun start shooting, and we had just come up to a bunch of foxholes that had been dug before us, and we were in the reserve, so we took their foxholes, and about the time I got in my one foxhole, I thought, well, this foxhole not very good. I'll go over and get in this other one. And I got over in that other, and one of those shells hit the hole that I'd been in.
Oh, really?
And my buddy, he heard that hit over there, and he came over and looked at it tore up my pack, and he came over there, and he was halfway crying, and I looked over at his foxhole, and I said, "What the hell are you crying for?" And boy, he was embarrassed, but he was glad too.
Oh, of course.
He thought I'd had it. And let's see. Oh, what's
So
next?
would they when you guys had a low number platoon? I mean, you weren't up to numbers. Would they bring replacements in
Well,
and
yeah,
add to your
they brought
platoon?
replacements in, so they got them up to, I don't know how, but
Yeah,
yeah, 17 was supposed to be about 45. That's probably what they
yeah.
started out with. And a lot of
So-
them were killed, a lot of them were hurt. But, so let's see.
So when you would advance against the Japs and how would you know where to shoot at them or what did you do? You were a rifleman, right?
Yeah. Well, whenever they started shooting at us, then we knew to shoot back.
Did you get after them, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And we didn't hit too many, but we hit a few. And then we were going up to we got back in the front lines and we were going up there, taking the island, and there was this straw hut. And it was right in front of me, and so I just climbed up on the straw hut, and about the time I got up there, the dummies set that thing afire.
Oh,
And so it had well, it was about this high and maybe higher, and it was the front of it. So I jumped down there, down in the front, get out of that fire. And when I jumped down, there was 4 Japs kind of sitting there right in a place back in there. And I guess I jumped quick enough, and I got the drop on them, and I put my rifle out and told them get up and get going, and I was going to take them back as prisoners. I got me 4 prisoners. Anyway, one of them started to run, so then I only had 3 live ones.
yeah.
Anyway, that one prisoner, he didn't feel too good after he ran anyway. But that was quite something to have those 4 prisoners right there and I jumping down in front of them. I was only about 2-3 feet from them.
Well, were they? Well, they were armed though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were armed, but I got the drop on them, so I guess they dropped their arms or something. Oh yeah, they held up their hands, and they were going to be prisoners except for that one that ran. And then we were going along, and we came to
What'd you do with those guys?
we took them back to the people back behind.
POW.
Or, yeah, the sergeant, that guy is telling you, wisecracking, he came up there, what the devil's going on here? They hauled back and said we had 4 prisoners. All there is 3. And I said, well, the other one got lost. Anyway, then we're going along again, and they came to a little house, a wooden place, and you could see in there was a crack in there, and you could see it was a crummy place, but you could see back in that crack, and I could see a Jap lying back in there hiding. So I took a grenade and threw it in there. This always gives the boys out at the coffee a charge. And I threw the grenade in, and a little mutt threw it back out. So I threw it back in, and then it went off.
Oh, wow.
And I always say, well, I sure glad that wasn't a 6-second grenade. They had 3-second grenades, and they had 6 seconds, and this must have been a 6-second. Well, and then we kept going and done the story that you've heard, or that I sent to you, that Marilyn Musgrave put it in.
Well, tell us about that.
Okay, I'll tell you about
Yeah.
that. Well, we were going through this grove of trees there, and we knew it was the edge of the ocean and the end of the battle, and so, but we'd gotten a Marine lieutenant who thought we should get to the end of the island first. So he said, well, let's get a move on us, and about that time the where there was a flamethrower came up, and it was going to. We knew it was going to clean that grove out. And we were halfway. We were started in it. So the old lieutenant said, "Nelson, you get on back there and tell them not to be shooting any flames in this grove." So I did. I walked back there, and about the time I got up to the flamethrower, they threw that. It's a long, great big barrel that sticks out there, and they threw that right in my face. And I didn't care for that. I started using obscenities at them, but that's the thing. That was the thing to do, because they knew I wasn't a Jap when I started using those words, and so they got.
Hold it, you guys. Well, you can start about the. Okay. So they stuck the. You were saying you were at this grove of trees and they stuck this flamethrower in your face, and you got upset about that.
I was back there all by myself, and well, yeah, I got upset, and I used a few nasty words at them, and so they cooled right down, and they knew I wasn't a Jap, so they turned around and went back, and I went up and caught my platoon, and I was a scout anyway. That's the reason I went back, and so this Marine lieutenant, he wanted to get through there fast before anybody did, because he knew that was the end of the battle. So he hurried us through there, and if there'd have been any Japs in those trees, we'd all been dead. But there wasn't. So we got up, and I really think I was the first one to see the end of the island. And like I've said before, I didn't know at that time it was the end of the war. That was the last battle, the Battle of Okinawa.
Okinawa, yeah.
Yeah, it was. See, Iwo Jima was just before Okinawa, and that's what the Marines took that.
So you captured Okinawa, and then what did they do? What happened to you after? You said that was the end of the war, but
no, it wasn't the end. I mean, it was the end of the war, but it wasn't the end of our being. See, we went back and we had to mop up, and that's harder work than it is to fight. If you don't believe me, ask the 27th Division. They had to mop up after the Marines went down the road in trucks, and they had to mop up after them, and they had a worse time than anything. And I'll tell you the story about my buddy that was in that 27th Marines. They got up and they were going to stand reveille, and the first sergeant was calling their names, and he called Bob McClellan, and Bob he would never answer on it. He'd stand there and think a while, and then he was so slow talking. And that's the way he was this time. And another guy hollered out, "He got killed yesterday." And Bob said, "I did not." I guess that about broke the reveille up. That was my buddy that was in the 27th Division. Well, anyway, we went back and lived in big tents, and for a while, and the people that run, let's see what he called. Better shut that off. But the engineers were out there fixing up our camp, and they were making a heck of a noise, and I went over and was going to take a nap, but some of the 3 or 4 of the boys, they wanted to play poker, so they went over to one of the cots, the army cot, started playing poker, and they kept asking me if I didn't want to play, so I finally went over and played poker with them. I'd only been over there about I don't know how long, not very long, and through the tent a great big chunk came down that the engineers had not meant to do, but it did. It came through the tent, and it hit right on where my head would have been in that army cot.
Wow.
So I always said that was a poker game that saved my life.
What was the chunk of stuff?
It was a big rock.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, just a big rock. See, well, that's what. See, Okinawa was coral.
Right.
See, it was really coral. In fact, there's so much coral. I got some brand new combat boots when we went into battle, and let's see, I think it was 18 days. I needed a new pair.
Cut them up
That's what
so
that
bad.
coral did to them. And they were trying to get that coral and get the camp set up, and they put up a great big rock, and it came right down there. So we can't set up camp there. We had pretty big tents, and we slept in our cots. And one day, I heard something terrible. I thought it was thunder, so I thought it was. And I got up, and then I went back to bed. And you know what that was?
No.
A bomb hit the first time the atomic bomb hit Japan.
Oh, Hiroshima.
Okinawa is that close. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did you
Yeah,
hear
I'm
that?
sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
Nobody else heard it, and I know it wasn't thunder because there never was any rain or anything.
Yeah.
And so that was shortly before the end of the war, and I went up to see this one buddy. He was still up north in the 27th, and he wasn't home, but I got out there. I was just coming back from there, and I looked over this was right out in the big where all the water was, and it was something to see, all the ships that were out there. That the United States Navy was something. But anyway, I looked out there, and here came a greenish small plane. I know it's small, but it was greenish plane, and it landed over there on the Missouri, and that was Tojo, I'm sure, coming to meet with MacArthur to settle the war, to end the war.
And the war, yeah.
Yeah, but then I went back to camp, and a few days later, we heard that the war had ended. Well, we didn't really believe it, but we hoped it had, and we really started celebrating when we found out for sure. But the trouble was the anti-aircraft boys, they started celebrating too. They started shooting their anti-aircraft up in the air. And it was the greatest 4th of July celebration I ever saw. But the trouble was some of those shells didn't explode up there, and there were 6 of them died. The shells
really?
the shells came down. They said 6 of them.
Hit people.
The anti-aircraft. How would you like to write home to the parents and say, well, your son died celebrating the end of the war?
Yeah, that wouldn't be so great, would it?
I don't suppose it was done that way. And see, I think that's about it as far.
Well, then the war ended,
Yeah.
and then did you immediately go to Korea, or did Korea was
Well, it wasn't.
what happened?
Well, Korea was. See, the Japanese had taken over Korea and treated them like the devil. They treated them terrible.
Yeah.
And the Koreans didn't like the Japs. And when we went in there, well, I'll get ahead of myself. We boarded the troop ships and went to Korea to take over. And that was the smoothest ocean I ever saw. It was the Indian Ocean, I think, where there was no waves or anything. But anyway, we went into Korea. We went into, I knew I'd forget the name of that town. Anyway, we went on into the capital, Seoul.
Seoul, yeah.
We bivouacked right up on the capital, Seoul, the 7th, or I think it was my company bivouacked right up on the capital there at Seoul. And there was a guy running around there, Korean. He was trying to get in good with us. And you know, his name was Kim. And you know, Kim took over as president of South Korea after the war. So that might have been him, I don't know. But anyway, he was really brown-nosing, so maybe I better not use that. But so then we set up at schoolhouses out in the different towns, well, Korea had no electricity. The Japs had shut them off, and they were in bad shape. Their lights were out, and they couldn't take a bath, and it was terrible. And they had their toilets were out in the street, is what they were. But you know, when we went into Korea, into Seoul, those Koreans just loved us. We couldn't even drive down the street without them stopping us. They knew we were their saviors, and so we got along good with them, and then we went out into the different towns and took care of what was going to happen, and I guess there was nothing going to happen. I should tell you about my Mormon friend. He never did anything wrong. He just was the best kid I ever saw. His name was Nelson. That's probably why he was so good. But he was Johnny Nelson. He was my good buddy, and he was supposed to stand guard that night out there at that schoolhouse. So, well, what we'd been doing, we'd been standing guard and getting a Korean to take our place, and then we'd go to sleep. So the guy that had never done anything, he did that too. He got a Korean, but would have it. The Korean ran off, and here came the sergeant.
Uh-oh.
Caught him without not standing guard. And then the last I saw of him, I left pretty soon after that to go to Amherst College. Anyway, he was mopping floors with a brush. I can still see him. But the best, nicest kid you ever saw. He's the one that got caught. And that's probably about it.
Or you
And that's probably about it.
Or you
Third alternate. That's at Amherst. That was a West Point prep school.
Oh, okay.
That's why they sent me.
Okay, now how old were you, Keith, when all this was cooking? How old?
Well, I was 20 when I hit basic training. I was 21, 22.
Yeah, okay.
I remember I was back there at Amherst, and all those other kids, they couldn't buy beer, but I could. Because I was old enough. I was 21 by that time.
So the Army sent you to Amherst,
Yes,
and as a prep to go to
West Point.
West Point. Okay.
We went to classes right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you about when I got to they told me that I was supposed to go to Amherst or West Point. I got a piece of paper. Oh, it was a magic piece of paper, and it had Nimitz's. It had Admiral Nimitz's name on it.
Okay.
And I went into Japan and got into this one airport there, and I went up to this company clerk there. He said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I want to go home." He said, "Yeah, we all do." I said, "But I'm going to see this." Boy, he got on the ball and got me out of there just like that.
Bingo, huh?
Yeah, and then I went back and I rode back and landed outside of San Francisco.
Well, now when you went home, did you fly home or did you have to take a boat?
Well, no, I flew from Japan to, we stopped at Johnson Island. We couldn't fly all the way, and then let's see, where'd we go? I guess we went to Hawaii. And yes, I had 2 Saturday nights at the time. Saturday night at Johnson Island, when they got into Hawaii, I had another Saturday night. Of course, that was
Across the date line.
across the date line.
Yeah, right.
I always thought, well, I really like Saturday night, and I got two of them that time. And so we stopped at Hawaii and got up the next morning and went into San Francisco, saw the Golden Gate Bridge and the prison, and then I still had quite a time before I had to report to Amherst, so I got another airplane and went, but all the further I got was Sacramento, and on my visa, whatever, I had to get on that plane, and then I had to take a train to Sydney, and I let my folks know I was coming, and they met me there. My two sisters, I think there were, and my folks, they met me there. Took me home.
Well, then did you go on to Amherst from there, and then?
No, I went home and had a couple of weeks at home, and I went back to Amherst, and they said, well, you never had any furlough. You're going to have to go back home and have a furlough. So I went back home. I rode the trains and watched the boxcars all the way back, and I went home. Let's see. Oh yeah, I got up to Sydney, and I got off the train and went out to that where the highway connects out there. The two of them, they used to anyway, and I walked out there. I could walk any place, and here was this car came along, a Logan County license, and I waved at them and tried to get them to stop. So they stopped, and I started running up there, and they took off. So I had to go walk clear back, called Dad, and he came and got me. But I'd like to got that. See, in those days, you didn't do that to soldiers.
No, of course not.
You picked up hitchhikers that were soldiers all the time. Never did hear anybody getting killed by a soldier.
No.
A hitchhiker anyway.
So how long did you spend at Amherst?
Oh, well, you see, I was late getting in there, and my group was going down to Fort Benning, so they let me go with the next group, and I stayed there probably 2 months or something like that. And they had to go to Fort Benning, but I didn't, because I was too. Then we went to West Point to take the test. We had to take another test.
Oh yeah.
And that was something to go into West Point. If you ever been to West Point?
No.
Well, it's all, I don't know what you call it, all good stuff. Soldiers or generals, statues, stuff like that. And I did see, well, I was there about 3 or 4 days, and I saw Davis and Blanchard.
Davis, yeah, right, the football guys.
Yeah,
Doc
but they were playing baseball then.
Oh, were they?
I thought, boy, they're good baseball players too. And so I went to a game of theirs, and then let's see. Oh, I went back to Amherst, and after that, and no, I didn't either. That's where I got my discharge. They told me I would get my discharge, so I went to Fort Dix and got discharged. And that's a good place to get discharged because it's clear across the country, and they gave you mileage.
Okay.
So I got a lot of mileage from Fort Dix. I was really interested. You remember Fort Dix was the place that they were going to, the terrorists were going to blow up a while back.
Yeah.
That was the place.
That was it there.
Yeah.
Well, so then you got discharged at Fort Dix, and then you came back to home here?
Well, first I went into Philadelphia, Camden, New Jersey, and saw my cousin. He took me all around there. And then I got a Streamliner in Philadelphia and came out here. And I got into Sydney again, but I didn't want my folks to come in, so I did catch a ride this time into Sterling. And walked around Sterling and saw people I knew, and finally I decided, just asked some people I knew, why wouldn't they, if they wouldn't take me out to there and dump me off at the corner. See, my folks live about a mile and a half from the corner on Highway 6, and yeah, they would. And I figured I was going to walk, but I'd walked before. But they took me right up to the house and let me out, and the folks were really surprised. They didn't know I was coming home from Amherst, and I often thought, you see all these parades, these people cheering the people coming home from the war. I couldn't even see anybody I knew around Sterling. Oh, I did, but not very much. But I walked around Sterling, never saw a parade. No, I'm being facetious now, but that was about it.
So, what was your rank during the when you?
Well, look at that coat there.
Okay. Hold it, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were in the Korean War and got in trouble there when the Chinese came down and killed a bunch of them. But yeah, see it.
The hash marks on the sleeve down there. Tell them what that means.
All right, that was a year in service, but I was longer.
Each one of those bars.
Yeah,
is 6 months.
I think so. I've forgotten some things.
Yeah.
Blouse, that's what he called it, and it was quite something. Everybody liked it, and I got one that's really the smooth type. Other people got a little rougher coats.
You got some medals there. Let's tell us about those medals.
Well,
Ruth.
let's see. Let's see. This is
Ready?
Now, what's that medal about?
okay. This is the Bronze Star. Either there's a Silver Star and a Bronze Star. This is a Bronze Star.
And that's awarded for heroism in battle.
I guess, yeah.
Of course it is.
This is what I'm really proud of. You get this when you hit the front lines. That's the combat badge.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot of people don't even. Well, I know a guy that was in service. He didn't even know what that was, but that gave you more money.
That's the combat badge.
Yeah. Okay, that's about it. Well, it was good conduct. I'm really proud of that.
Amazing.
Amazing. I got the good conduct.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Well, here's something that might be interesting. That was my dog tags. I had two of them, but one of them is gone.
Wait
Can you
just
get
a
that?
second. Wait, I can't.
What's wrong?
Oh, I just hit the wrong button.
Did you ever read American Heritage? That same thing I sent you.
Okay, Dr. Olive.
Okay.
Wait, okay, now hold your picture back up, Keith. Good.
You got that now? Give them 10 seconds. Just use your zoom. Here. We're going to get that.
Look at the difference.
Ruth, get a picture of this. Punch.
Okay,
Now
now
it's-
we're ready to go.
Okay.
Okay, Keith.
Okay.
Now, did you get it?
Hold that picture.
Did you get this pic? Okay. Did you get this picture?
I don't think she did.
You get those. I've got to go take a call.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about that picture, Keith. Is that when you were dismissed, or
Huh? Oh, this is.
is that when you got, when Marilyn gave it to you?
No, this is, well, I got that at the church. The church took pictures in this. Well, I told you all about what it is, but I just sent it to her and she put it up in front of the House of Representatives and told them they ought to, I don't know what, but I haven't heard from them, so I guess it's. had it taken when I was home on furlough, and I thought it was the best picture I ever took.
Which furlough, Keith?
Oh, I suppose when I came back from Korea to go to Amherst, and I didn't go right away. I think that's when I took it.
You tell me.
This was in the Army of when we were in occupation in 1945, and the Koreans are great to have statues like, or whatever you call those things. That one behind me there. But we didn't get many pictures taken on Okinawa. I came home and I was planning on going to University of Colorado, as I had gone there for a while before, but I couldn't find any place to live, so I decided to go to NJC, and that was the best thing I ever did. So I went to NJC, and one night this Bud Kinsey came along and said, "Hey, I got you a blind date. Why don't you go with me?" And I said, "Okay." So he had a Chevy convertible with what do you call those things? Those seats in the back.
Rumble seat?
Rumble seat, yeah, a rumble seat. He said, "Well, I'll go over and get this other girl. She's a good friend of your girl." And so we went up to the Moncrief place. Raymond Moncrief, Esther Moncrief, and a whole bunch of kids. So I don't know if I went up to the door or what, but anyway, I got this girl into the rumble seat. Had to pick her up and put her in there. That was Wanda, my future wife. But I didn't go with her for quite a while. I went, and then I saw her later, and I was going to go out with her sister, and her sister didn't want to go out with me, so I went out with Wanda, and we had 4 boys, and we had I taught school in Holyoke, and I had 2 boys there, and then I taught school in Fleming, and I had 2 boys there, and kept trying to get a girl, but we never could get a girl. But the boys are all good boys.
What did you teach, Keith?
I taught, when I was in Holyoke, I taught junior high English and spelling. And, yeah, spelling. And Fleming, I taught English and spelling in the junior high for 3 years. And then I moved up to the high school and taught English and speech. And I taught there for 26 and a half years.
Did you retire teaching?
Yes, I retired in 1979, the middle of the year.